everybody. Welcome once again. And the start of the day has been astounding. So, I welcome you all to the next session, which is a panel discussion on accelerating sales using emotional intelligence. So, this panel is going to last for 60 minutes. Like we all know, in this fast changing world and this pandemic, a lot of things have been happening and a lot of pressures on the sales professional. They're constantly evolving, and for them, it's not just competing against each other, but competing against the growing power of online sales and the increasing demand of consumers. So that is why emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and manage emotions, both in ourselves and others, is becoming more vital to effective sales. Here, I welcome the panel speakers for this discussion. We have Mr. Steve Goodenough, who has joined in from Dallas, Texas. We have Mr. Ravi Sundaram, Mr. Milind Kher, and Ms. Mamta Kumla. I welcome you all to the VI Summit. It's great to have you people here. It's an honor to introduce all of you here. I would like to introduce Mr. Milind Kher to the participants. Milind Kher is an emotional intelligence specialist. He's an NLP practitioner and an ICF certified life coach. He works with the human mind and human relationships to enable personal and professional excellence. He comes with over 3 decades of experience, of which 17 years in hardcore FMCG sales in ITC Limited. In social marketing, he has independently set up and operated 50 wholesale dealers. He has worked extensively with brands like Classic and Goldflake and has been an integral part of successful brand launches in different geographies. He has played an important role in supporting the trade marketing systems and has cascaded this to managers and executives alike. He played a pivotal role in the launch of ITC Foods in key cities in the Western region. He has held senior positions in human resources in the jewelry and education sector. From the past 6 years, he is the CEO of Hospitality Quorum, which does training with different sectors and whose flagship product is behavioral assessments using extended DISC platform. I welcome all the panel members once again, and we look forward to listening to the great discussion. Over to you, Mr. Milind.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. It's really wonderful to be over here. And I think the brilliant session delivered by Robert has had its impact on me, and I'm going to be very mindful about, some key aspects of life. And I want to right now talk about 2 things. One is that sales is a very critical part of our life ever since we are children, asking for chocolates, asking for that bicycle, or we become teenagers and we want those music systems, and we want that motorbike and everything. Later on, we go to jobs, we want a good job. Everywhere there is sales involved. And emotional intelligence today rated as the number 6 life skill on the planet by the World Economic Forum. I see it moving very quickly towards becoming number 1. So without further ado, I am going to introduce some of the best practitioners of this skill on this planet who are right now there in our panel. And I'm going to start with Steve Goodenough. So Steve is the president and owner of Goodenough Strategic Consulting. He GSC FIT. He's the 6 seconds preferred partner, leveraging 40 years in business, the tools of psychology and assessment, consulting, coaching experience with hundreds of different companies. Steve applies cutting edge science to the people side of business. As a preferred partner with 6 seconds, the world's largest emotional intelligence community, Steve has developed proprietary tools and processes to infuse the power of EQ into organizations, leaders, and teams. The recently released EQ Fit sales profile based on the 6 seconds SEI assessment was created by Steve to measure human dynamics in the sales arena in real time. Steve Goodner is the managing partner of GSC Fit, a consulting, coaching, training, assessment company based in Dallas, Texas.
Thank you very much, Milan.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. And then moving on to someone who comes with phenomenal experience. He is none other than Ravi Sundaram. Ravi is the founder, promoter, and the managing director of Mercury Goldman India Private Limited. Mercury India is part of Mercury International, the world leader in sales performance consulting and training. Mercury India, in its 33 years of operation, has established itself as a brand leader in the chosen area of expertise. As a global partner and member of the ExCo of Mercury International AB, he supports several units across the world in their operational excellence and in their business growth. Ravi is also founder, promoter, and director of the CERT Team Development India Private Limited. CERT India is deeply committed to evangelize the power of Belbin team roles and work roles to help companies build high-performance teams. Ravi has over 43 years of experience in sales, marketing, training, and consulting, business and organization building. His training and consulting work spreads across a range of industries and businesses in India, as well as different parts of the world. Besides having a deep understanding of the wide repertoire of Mercury sales and service know-how blocks, he has also conceptualized and created a number of new sales and management tools, which have been well proven with many clients and found to be invaluable. Welcome aboard, Ravi.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and honor.
Thank you. And I now come to the final panelist, someone who's had some versatile exposure to things, Mamta Kumbla. Mamta brings over 2 decades of expertise in strategy, sales, and business development in India. Her career path spans from frontline space selling to what she brings in now. She's worked with the French cosmetic brand L'Oreal for over a decade and has played a key role in building the brand. She also has a good experience in organizations like Godrej, Henkel, etc. At present, Mamta is a director at India Ops Consulting. She's very passionate about her sales career, and this journey has led her to learn and practice EI. Welcome aboard, Mamta.
Thank you so much, Milind. Thank you.
Okay, so sometimes they say that the most important thing is not just providing the right answer. As coaches, we all know that powerful questioning is also very important. And I'm going to give it my best in order to be able to get out some fantastic talent from our panelists. So the first question goes to Steve. Steve, what is the role of emotions in the thought process of the buyer? Why do you feel what you feel? Do share an example or some examples where you believe the aspect of understanding others played a role.
Yeah, great question. According to your definition, Milan, I've been in sales for 63 years. Wow. It started with selling my parents on getting me chocolate. Okay. So I've been in sales a very long time. I'm going to get right into this because there's so much that we can talk about in this time. Buyers have 6 needs: practical needs, value needs, budget needs, time needs, logic needs or intellect needs, and emotional needs. Out of those 6 needs, every single one of those has emotional drivers or emotional detractors attached to them. So, and I'm going to give you an example of this so it makes more sense, but I'm deep into the work of emotional intelligence in the sales world. And I'm finding some fascinating things. Some are very simple. The higher the emotional intelligence, the higher the likelihood that someone will be successful in sales. I have seen that play out over and over again. Let me give you an example that I think will help you better understand. I'm currently selling a sales training and coaching consulting project to a potential client. This client is in heavy manufacturing in oil and gas. So here's what I've been able to observe. And you're asking about the mind of the buyer. What's going on in the mind of the buyer? Practical need to improve sales in a down market. The emotional drivers behind that are fear, uncertainty, and anxiety. The value need to see sales revenue and cash flow increase immediately. What's behind that? Emotional drivers, anxious, hopeful, and unsure or uncertain. The budget need. They have a limited amount of money they can spend on this project, and this has to work for them. So they're hesitant, they're guarded, they're a bit anxious about that. The time need is immediate. They need this to accelerate success now. So the emotional drivers are urgency, fear, anxiety, and hope. They're hoping that this is going to help them. The logic or the intellect need, they need to be able to wrap their brain around this. Now, this is the fun part for those of us who deal with emotional intelligence, because they're all engineers. Okay.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So we're speaking a very different language here. They're not real well versed on the people side of business, but their logic needs are just to understand what we're trying to accomplish in this. And really, they don't understand how neuroscience or emotional intelligence can be leveraged to make that happen. And so there's uncertainty, there's a bit of anxiety, there's a bit of concern around that. Most important need they have, and you'll find this in most buyers, is the emotional need. They need to feel confident and hopeful. That's what they need. Currently, they're feeling lost and unsure. So leveraging emotional intelligence in the sales effort is absolutely critical, and it's foundational to sales success. If all a salesperson relies on is technique, that's influence. But if you don't have connection and trust, then influence doesn't mean that much. You have to connect and build trust first. Most sales training misses that completely. They talk about technique.
So true.
So back to the mind of the buyer. I was able to identify the 6 needs, the emotional drivers or detractors behind all of those 6 needs. Now I can craft or customize my sales approach specifically to their needs and to the emotional drivers that I want to see them have. Let's turn detractors into drivers. Now, what happens when that happens? You hit moments of what we call hot cognition. Hot cognition is when emotions combine with logic to move the process forward more quickly. Oh. And I teach a lot around hot cognition and the neuroscience of that. Actually, I've got an ebook that I've shared with some of you that there's a 4-step process to ignite hot cognition in the brain of the buyer. So bottom line, I'm so convinced that emotional intelligence is the key to exceptional sales success that I've created the first real-time assessment, the EQ Fit sales profile, to measure how salespeople are connecting and building trust so they can then apply influence in the right way. Now, that may be drinking. You probably just got a big drink from a fire hydrant. That was a lot of information, but I'm so deep into this work right now, and I believe so strongly in it that, and I just want to share it with people.
Wow, Steve, that was really good. I think one aspect of that which we really liked is the fact that you look at things so deeply from the buyer's perspective. All along, sales pitches have always been about selling. Now we know that everybody likes to buy and nobody likes to be sold to. If I am at the receiving end of a salesperson who's giving me a sales pitch, I tune out in 2 minutes. However, if someone comes and asks me about my pain points, my concerns, then I tell them, yeah, tell me about your product. I want to know more. So I think this is a fantastic thing you've done, and devising that EQ-based sales assessment. Please keep us posted on the progress, because I think it's something that's got fantastic potential.
I think so too. And something you said, Milind, very quickly that I think is so important. I don't look at a sales process as a sales process. I look at it as a partnering opportunity. Can I partner with them in their success? That removes a lot of the stigma of selling in the mind of both of us. So I think that's a good point on your part.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next question to Ravi. Now, this is about a subject which is, people are very cagey and very sensitive about, and yet it's a reality. It's about biases. So how do you pick up biases in a buyer? Do you find that empathy makes a difference in being able to identify this?
That's a lovely question, Milind. And I'm going to give a very different take on that.
Sure.
Very different take. Could be interesting, could be controversial, but a very different take. First of all, I always believe that the word bias is our own personal value judgment we add to it. Look at the word bias. I always tell a lot of sales guys, when a customer likes you and buys from you, you call him loyal. When a customer buys from competition, you call him biased.
Very nuanced. Yes.
Okay. So the word bias is such a lovely word. The word, my way of attributing bias to someone comes from my bias. Because he doesn't like me, he's not agreeing with me, he has got something else in mind, therefore he is biased. But if he agrees with me, he's a nice guy, he's a sweet guy, he's a lovely guy, he has no bias. All right? So I think the word bias as a starting point itself sets a wrong feeling of emotions in the mind. Therefore, I tell all the sales guys that never start with the word bias in your mind at all, number one. So what's the alternative? I have another word for it in my mind. I call it pick up the nuances. When a customer is saying something, when a customer is looking at you, when a customer is behaving, don't add anything to that. Just say that it's a nuance. Okay, this is something different, I'm experiencing it. That's all. The moment you start seeing it as a nuance, your ability to respond to the nuance becomes much more matured, much more sharper, and much more effective. Because my bias of his bias adds to the conversation in a wrong way. That's one. And secondly, when do we call anything a bias? My experience is that if you don't understand something and try to pass a judgment in our mind, it becomes a bias. Therefore, the simplest way of treating it is, just try to understand it. If I start understanding, I will come to know there's a reason for something, there is a background for something, and there's a context for something. And the moment I do that, the biases disappear from my mind. I don't even know whether the biases were in the customer's mind. Actually, it disappears from my mind.
Okay.
That is a very interesting part. And also, many times, we keep observing people constantly for such biases, and we become more self-obsessed in the process, and therefore we don't deliver our best. When I truly care for the customer and I serve the customer well, and selling is not sales pitch. It is really understanding the customer context, customer stated needs, customers' anticipated needs, and truly work towards becoming a partner. Not just a partner, somebody who we can trust on, somebody who can advise on. So the moment you start doing it, you don't start pitching. Pitching is like a bowling a ball. No, you're not doing that actually. So I think when we become a little bit more less obsessed with all these things, we see the biases. Not at all. There's no bias at all. Number one. I want to introduce an interesting word here.
Sure.
Which I thought of a combination.
Yeah.
Sales is a beautiful combination of expertise and empathy. I call it empathetic expertise.
Wow.
Empathetic expertise. Think about it. If I'm an expert in sales, I go tell the customer, I know what you want. This is what you need. Okay. If I'm only empathetic without having the expertise, I will actually agree with whatever the customer says, which may not be good for the customer. Therefore, a very nice combination is empathetic expertise. And believe me, every customer loves it. A customer loves to work with a salesperson who is demonstrating high quality expertise and a high quality empathy. Actually, sales is all about emotions. Actually, there's nothing else in sales. Sometimes I say, a guy who gets a new machine in his shop floor, when the machine comes and delivered and the machine is kept on the floor, I think even a shop floor guy looks at the machine with a lot of admiration. There's a lot of feeling in it. Even machines have feelings. Why not human beings? Absolutely. So empathy and expertise is very vital. Last point.
Yeah.
Everything as an experiment. Every sales meeting is an experiment. And when we see it as an experiment, some experiments go well, some experiments don't go well. But the good news, we learn from every single experiment either way. I think the moment we see that, the bias goes out of our mind, and when the bias goes out of our mind, actually it was never in customer's mind. That will be my take on this, Millie.
Wow. Ravi, that was really, really brilliant. Every word of what you have said carries such deep meaning. There are two definite takeaways which I found very, very powerful. One is the way that you flip the thing around from the buyer to the seller, and we learn to recognize that, a lot of the biases that we perceive actually are coming from our own selves.
Always.
That is one thing. And the brilliant midpoint between empathy and expertise, or rather the confluence of both, and making it empathetic expertise. Yes, very, very true, because I do believe that credibility is a combination of both integrity and competence. Integrity alone doesn't work, nor does competence alone. It's integrity and competence which gives us credibility.
Very simply. And it's not difficult to build. Yeah, we just have to work towards it. And I think anything good is difficult to try, isn't it?
Excellent,
yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, very true. Thanks so much. So now I'm going to come to Mamta.
Yeah.
Now, Mamta has been dealing with stuff which occupies a very, very emotional space. The space that you live in and how you look, like selling space and L'Oreal, very, very emotional things. So I want to ask Mamta, from an emotional perspective, what are the factors we need to consider in making a sale? And are there some emotional cues that we can look out for, which can tell us that we are making some kind of a headway with the buyer?
Thanks, Milind, for this question. And thank you, Ravi and Steve. There's so much to learn from you people, for sure. So that's a great learning for me, too. So what I'm going to really speak about is basically my experiences and my insights through my whole journey in the last over 2 decades. So it's been an amazing journey. And I completely come with this thought process that human decisions are never logical and rational. And it's always a very emotional decision. Though many of them do not accept that fact, they feel it's a very rational and a logical one, but it's more or less never the same. And for me as a sales individual, it's so important for me not to just call it a sales pitch or go with an agenda to sell to a buyer, you know. And if I am not open to really giving them time and understanding from them, then you really don't close that sale. So I've more so less in my experiences, what I have noticed is everyone at the beginning of their career, even maybe me too, would say that this is my sales pitch and I have 10 minutes to go. I walk into the buyer's space and say, I have to finish this in 10 minutes because I have 20 calls to do, you know. And this is not about a sales personnel, but this is how the organization works. A organization that you join normally tells a salesperson, listen guys, your call rates or your sales calls have to be 20 in a day. And how do you really do 20 or 30 calls in a day and also give time to a buyer to understand his needs? So the most important thing here is to change and transform how sales organizations work. And that can be done only through leaders. When a leader understands and empathizes and understands the need is when you really get your sales personnel to get there and do their job. So the key I feel basically is a salesperson is not going in to sell. His agenda is not to sell, but genuinely his agenda is to be a life changer to your buyer. And this does happen. You can change lives, as far as you don't really want to look like a salesperson. And it's not about manipulating your buyer. Absolutely not. When you're actually doing something for his good, which is beneficial for him, and understanding his needs is so much more important. So my personal experience, just one example to share with you guys, is I have worked in an environment with a French company, and I have catered to the salon industry. So my buyers used to be salons. So I have worked in an industry that is very emotional, and that's the salon industry. And when I mean salon industry, they are hairdressers, they are hairstylists, and they're extremely high-level creative people. So my learning through this whole process has been, how do I build this business for them? So when I walk in, it's not really selling a product, but to tell them that by using this product, giving them the data analysis of how really you can earn more, how you can generate more revenue, how does your salon become a bigger picture in the industry. So to connect as a sales individual is the key. And if you do not empathize and if you do not connect with your buyer, your probability of selling or closing the deal for sure is far lesser. It's not going to happen. Wow. So I believe today that a salesperson is, if you notice in many companies, they are no more called as a sales executive. They are called as business development executives or business development managers. Many companies have changed their terminology. And that's because you look at a salesperson as an advisor or someone who wants to build the buyer's business and make it bigger for him, a larger picture. And that's very important. So if you do not empathize with your buyer, you will never know the buyer's motivating factors. And that's the key.
Wow. Wonderful. Yeah, I think this is so relevant, whenever we're handling something that is so emotional. And I simply love that concept, Mamta, of, being a life changer for the buyer. And, being actually a consultant and an advisor for the buyer. Normally, what happens is we are always trying to make it all about us. When we make it about them, that is when it makes one huge difference. And I think you've brought this out so beautifully. Thank you so much, Mamta, for a really insightful and a brilliant answer. And, okay. I'll come back to Steve again, and I want to relate this slightly to an experiment that Albert Mehrabian had conducted, where he talked about 7% impact being of the words we use, 38% being nonverbal cues, and 55% being our body language. So when we look at self-awareness, how important is a verbal cue vis-a-vis a non-verbal cue in your experience? If you could give some example of why you feel so.
Sure. And I have some more I want to talk about for the question as
Sure.
well. Because things that we haven't even talked about is mirror neurons.
Yeah.
In the brain. If the mirror neurons are our radar for picking up the emotions that other people are putting off. And, that's a big part of awareness. So self-awareness, honestly, I think that is an absolute building block of a successful sales effort. We know that self-awareness is one of the 3 big building blocks of emotional intelligence. It's self-awareness, self-management, self-direction, or self-leadership. So self-awareness is critical. I've worked with literally thousands of salespeople over 40 plus years. And here's what I know. Here's what I've seen. When they're not self-aware, aware of their own emotions, aware of the emotions of the other, aware of the needs, aware of how they're presenting themselves. When they're not self-aware, those are usually the sales processes that don't go very well. I believe we call that the sales experiments. Ravi said the sales experiments that don't go so well. And that's very true. And we can send signals, especially if we start to deal in an area that may be a need for somebody, but that we're not comfortable with. So self-awareness allows us the ability to, let me put it this way. If a salesperson can identify the emotional detractors or drivers that are present, both for themselves and for the buyer, if they have the ability to be agile and resilient, if they can understand the decision-making patterns in the buyer, how do they make decisions, what's important to them in the decision-making process, if they can pull from internal motivation instead of external motivators, and if they know how much energy they have to spare and how much they can put forward. Sales is one of the places where external motivators are generally not going to give you very positive results. There's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of fear and anxiety of making cold calls, picking up that phone, making the next. I love what Mamta said about, okay, buyer, you need to shut up and listen because I only have 10 minutes. And I'm going to get through my pitch in 10 minutes because I have 19 more calls to make after you. So you're going to live through this just like me. If that's what you're sending as a signal, you might as well not bother with your 10 minutes. Self-awareness is absolutely critical. The top performers that I have seen, they have a clear understanding of their self-talk and their ability to visualize in a positive way how things work or how they're going to work. It's almost like a preparation process. Have you ever thought about how your self-talk impacts your success? It is absolutely one of the primary either drivers or detractors of your success. The most successful people I know have very positive self-talk, and it's not ego. It's not an ego thing. They can visualize themselves being successful. They face the same challenges as everybody else does, but they choose in advance how they're going to respond to different types of challenges. They get EQ fit. And that's where the term came from for my sales assessment.
Okay, wow.
EQ fit.
That's interesting.
Because you have to be emotionally prepared, self-aware, so that you can be agile and resilient. Emotional intelligence is the most important skill set any salesperson can have. And I would back that up with 40 years of experience. So I just leave it at this. I've got a case study that I'm finishing up right now. Mm-hmm. A great sales organization that when we came in and did 1 year of training and coaching in EQ, they increased their sales from 9.5 million to 13 million in 12 months, and they doubled their net profit. Their net profit went from 1 million to 2 million in 12 months. So I have no doubt in my mind that emotional intelligence played a huge role in that success.
Wow, fantastic. Those were some really good insights, and I'm so happy you spoke about mirror neurons, which they taught us a lot during our NLP training, and it definitely builds a very, very powerful contagion, and it helps things to happen. And then again, stressing about self-awareness, I think, yes, the more we look within ourselves, the more we are able to effect changes outside of ourselves also. Because as one of our famous philosophers said, you must be the change that you want to see in the world. So thanks so much for that, Steve. Very nicely put. And coming to Ravi now, again, I'm going to speak about a difficult subject with Ravi. So I think Ravi takes those difficult subjects very well. So why is it so important to exercise self-control in sales, and how do we do it? Would you like to cite any experience that brought out, the role of self-control?
Sure. I'm very surprised that another interesting question has come to me, and as usual, I'll make a controversial start on that. Okay. I'm going to give a very practical approach to it. And once people start doing it, I find it pretty simple. Like, of course, all good things in the world when you learn are simple. You're like, okay, first time when you do is tough. After some time, my God, it's so easy. You just have to become good at it. That's it. Sales is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work because there is a pressure from the boss, the organization. End of the day, what have you done? And this has been my refrain for a long time. Most leadership do not tell their people and help them how to do. They only ask them what. We are so obsessed with what, we never find time to discuss, steer, guide how. And a lot of salespeople require that how. I have this favorite 20-60-20 ratio in my mind. 20% of people will do, they pick up from anywhere, they will learn, they will find a way. The last 20% really are not worried about it. The biggest challenge is the 60%, who require a lot of support, who require a lot of how. And I strongly believe that leadership is raising averages. If the average performance goes up every day, I think leadership has done a fantastic job. But in sales, what happens more often is that we compensate for one guy's good performance with several bad performance. As long as I get my target done, I'm very happy. But others, okay. But if average goes up, every day average goes up, I think people have done a great job. Therefore, sales is a lot of hard work. It is harder than what more people think about it. Many times there is also a kind of a misbelief that sales is not cerebral, whereas marketing is cerebral.
Okay.
I'm thinking and strategizing with neurons working in my mind and some calculations going on. For me, sales is more cerebral, more intellectual, more feelings, because at least in marketing, you get a few minutes time to say, give me time to think. Whereas in a sales conversation, I can't tell customer, give me 5 minutes, give me 5 minutes to think. I have to respond all the time. It is one of the most dynamic transactions, dynamic conversation, dynamic engagement which takes place, which can't take place unless I am fully alive to the whole situation. So it is much more difficult. And every context is new in sales. Even after I've been in sales for about 43 years now, I look at every day as I think it's another call today, another customer meeting. I don't know anything about this customer, or whatever I know in the past is over. Many times we look at experience. Whenever we put experience in front of us, we actually build a wall in front of us. But if you put experience below us, we build a platform. And then when a platform is high, we can view nicely, we can fly. So everything is new. Therefore, self-control is vital. Now, my take on self-control is, if you self-control or lack of it comes from feeling stressed. When I'm under stress, I have a better probability of losing self-control. If I'm not under stress, or at least less stress, my self-control can be better maintained. Therefore, the simplest way to handle self-control in a sales meeting, my belief is, enjoy the sales process.
Okay.
The moment you start enjoying anything, your probability of losing self-control wrongly is very, 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 very low.
Fantastic.
And when you enjoy something very well, even if you lose self-control, for example, a singer, a musician, sometimes a musician loses self-control in his pursuit of that lovely music, that enjoyment. But in the process, both the audience and he or she are enjoying it together. Therefore, people
Fantastic.
say, my God, see, he's somewhere. Sometimes that can happen. That kind of a loss of self-control is positive, because then enthusiasm, joy is contagious to the customer also.
Wow, wow.
And the customer rarely sees a sales guy who is so enthused. So he says, my God, I wish my guys were like him. I wish my guys were like him. So the more
Correct.
enjoying, our probability of losing self-control is far lower. And even if you lose in the enjoyment, I think it's perfectly fine. And even if it's momentarily, I think it's perfectly fine. I just want to give one example of this. It happened to me many, many years ago. I made a presentation and a proposal actually.
We just want to stop for a minute because this is a very momentous occasion, guys. It
Wow.
is 10:20, and we are wishing everyone a great mental health. And I think, yes, we are going through very challenging times across the world. But this moment, we pray for each one of you to have a great mental health. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. Please continue the discussions.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this just a short example. This happened several years ago. I'd made those days we didn't have e-proposals, so we had to make paper proposals. So I made a proposal to a large company, and I had to meet the managing director for the meeting. Nice guy. I met him. He asked me the first question, how are you doing? I said, I'm fine. How's your company doing? Our company is doing fine. Immediately his tone changed, and he said, obviously your company is doing well. That's why you got sent this proposal to me. That means you don't want my business. And he threw the proposal in the room. He just threw it. It flew for about 10 feet. Now you can get angry. How dare? I said, this I've never seen before. So for me, it's the first time I'm seeing it. So that means this is another experiment, another interesting opportunity. So I just went, picked up that proposal, gave it back on the table and said, sorry, it flew out of your hand.
Wow, how amazing is that?
And believe me, he was much more embarrassed. He was much, much more embarrassed. And it's okay. After all, when he lost self-control, do I have to lose my self-control? Not required. And in fact, everything went well at the end of the meeting, and it's quite okay. And when I was leaving, one of his reportees, who was a general manager, rang me up later and said, he told that, I have never met a sales guy like this in my life. So if we want to get our sales guys trained, let's start.
Okay, wow,
I
fantastic.
think sometimes it happens. See, when you enjoy the process during any journey, you will have hurdles. And if you start enjoying it as well, your ability to lose self-control is lower. That will be my take on these guys.
Super. Thanks so much, Ravi. I think that was a very brilliant take. Just getting enjoyment into what we do, I think completely alters the game. And I think you've highlighted this so beautifully. And Mamta, I'll come to you with a question that was similar to what I asked you earlier. However, this looks at a different aspect. We were talking of non-verbal cues. Now I'd like to focus a little more on the nuances of the words that we pick up from buyers. So what are the emotional dimensions of engaging with the buyer, and how do we get commitments? Are there any prompts that we can pick up?
Ravi, I should tell you that I loved your talk about the sales versus marketing, and I completely believe in that. Being a complete salesperson, I vouch for that completely. Though I don't know whether I should say this on this platform, but whatsoever.
Yeah, we're all salespeople.
It's from the heart, so.
Sure.
Okay, so getting to the question which Milind, you asked me, is the emotional dimensions. Firstly, we have to kind of understand one thing in today's scenario. It was very different for a salesperson, say about 20 years ago. There was a need for a human connect. There was no technology. There's no scenario of technology, and you don't have a choice but to connect with people and get your sales going. Things have changed drastically. And with technology coming in, a lot of people think that it's a substitute for human connect, or it is a substitute or an alternate for human connection to get going. But that's not the scenario at all. A salesperson needs human connect, whether with or without technology, and you cannot substitute at all. That's the key for a salesperson. What are actually dimensions that you can understand when you're selling a product or you're talking to a buyer is during the conversation is basically what are the buyer's needs today. Okay, and we all understand the old law of Maslow's needs, hierarchy needs. I'm sure all of us know so much about it. And these are basic needs of a buyer. What does he really want? Either there is some financial security he wants, or he's doing it for his self-esteem, or he wants to be known in society. He wants to be accepted for what he's been doing by his family members. And of course, the final and the peak of the hierarchy need is your self-actualization. If you, as a salesperson, do not give the time to listen, to observe and understand these cues that are coming in, and these are actual emotional dimensions that are coming in from a buyer, you cannot close the sale.
Okay.
If I understand that my buyer's need is his self-esteem in society, then I work according to that, what his need is. So you cannot change the buyer's motivators. You have to adapt to the buyer's motivators. And those motivators, if you don't understand, you really cannot empathize, you really cannot close that sale. What are those prompts? So as you said, there are very different prompts from a buyer today. They are emotional cues and they are prompts. And these are prompts that are very verbal. When a buyer is trying to ask you, what is your pricing of the product? What kind of margins are you going to give me? Who is going to deliver the stock? In how long am I going to get my stock? Can you give me some more information about the product? These are absolute prompts that are coming in that the buyer is getting furthermore into he's getting influenced into this whole conversation, and he sees that this is beneficial to him. And the most important is when your buyer really gets to your last verbal conversation is negotiation. When he's negotiating with you, it's very clear that you are very close to your sale. But at the same time, when you need emotional cues, it's very different. You see body language of your buyer, and that body language is different. He's nodding to you. That can be a body language. He's moving forward. That's another body language, So body language is the cue that you can get for emotional cues. You really can't get verbal languages so much. But when you're getting a closure to a prompt, it's more of asking questions. The buyer starts asking you questions. So I think the most important, whether it is an emotional cue or their prompts, for a seller, it's important to listen. Whereas salespeople today, and as always, or want to talk more than listen. And they don't observe. They go in with this whole thing that I have to talk about my product and I'm passionate about it and I want to go in for it, and I want to make that sale. But they don't really realize that you can make a sale only when you listen, observe, develop a long-term relationship with your buyer is when you can really close the sale. So I hope I've answered this to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Absolutely.
you
Well said,
answered it really well, and you have talked about identifying the critical questions that the buyer is asking, which indicate that yes, the buyer is wanting to close the sale. Okay, now the next set of questions I will have a request is that that it's one question for each of you. If we can run through it very briefly so that then we can take the audience questions also. So, I'll just, let's just have 1 minute answers on that and then we'll go to the audience questions. Question to you, Steve, is what according to you is the sales process and how does EI make it better? You can share the different stages.
Okay, look in the chat. I just put all my answer in the chat. So the sales process first starts with identifying and meeting needs through co-created solutions where the buyer perceives the value, the threshold value level is high enough, they'll move forward, and they get real return on investment. Now, there's some other things that are important here. Connection plus trust equals influence. So think of a bank account. More connection, more trust, you're putting deposits into the influence bank account. And then you can spend that influence down the road. That's the human dynamic where emotional intelligence plays a huge part. So connection, and this goes right back to what Mamta was saying, what Ravi was saying. Connection is active listening, asking good questions to gain insight, and understanding things from the buyer's perspective. Then trust is credibility plus reliability plus investment in the relationship or in the connection divided by the salesperson's self-focus. How much they want to talk, right, Mamta? How much they want to, to get something out of that. The more that they can go from the buyer's perspective. So the sales cycle, emotional intelligence can really accelerate sales success and really provide rocket fuel to the sales cycle because it really is always going to be person to person. It's not going to come out of a CRM system. It's not going to come out of artificial intelligence. That's not where sales happen.
Wow, so well put, Steve. Yes, in fact, yes, this is very much, in sync with the adage that companies don't do business with companies, people do business with people. So yes, people buy people first. So that's wonderful. Right. Thank you. Coming to Ravi, who are all the, what is the emotional involvement of stakeholders in a deal and how do we address them? Are there emotions which they are exchanging amongst themselves also?
Sure, I will keep the answer straight and simple because we have to handle it in the right time. See, the larger the sale, the more complex the sale, more number of people involved. Very simple. All right. And when the risk of decision making is high, more number of people get involved. It's the reality of life. So stakeholders are vital. And stakeholders have a connection among themselves. They exchange the connection among themselves because they are part of one community, whereas you are still, as a salesperson,
the other person. Okay, yeah.
You must recognize that as very important. So looking at the emotional side as well, I would say selling to each stakeholder separately and selling to them in a group setting both call for high level of emotional awareness. High level of emotional awareness. And I will just give 6 points which might be of help to people. 1, connect with each stakeholder and also connect with all. Both are important.
Sure.
Sometimes we connect with each, but we don't see them as one entity together.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Number
Sure.
two, be a radiant listener. When I say
Right. Right.
radiant, our eyes, our face should show joy of listening. It is not just active listening, it is curious listening, joyful
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
listening. Third,
Sure.
very vital is recognizing progress, because we don't seem to recognize progress when we work with people.
Okay.
If we start
Okay.
recognizing progress, we make them move forward.
Perfect. Perfect.
Use silence to scan people.
Yeah.
Don't have silence, you can't scan people.
Correct.
Number
True.
5, ask. If you don't know, if you want, ask. And the last one, be sensitive to each person and be sensitive to the group as a whole.
Wow.
If you see all the 6, they're all emotions to handle
Yes.
the stakeholders.
In fact, that 6 has scored an absolute boundary. I think that's.
Milinji, we have a lot of questions which is coming up. I think we
Yeah.
are on the time to this one. So please take the questions of the audience.
Okay, fine. We'll take the audience questions. Mamta, the question to you, I'll come upon if we can, deal with the audience questions in time. Okay. So the first audience question is to Steve Goodner. How to filter out people with the right needs for your service? I'm into subconscious mind coaching, and I need clarity at the conscious level to attract people who want to grow in life and are willing to be responsible for it. Action takers, please guide precisely.
Okay, in 1 minute or less, make your marketing about your ideal client. Make it content marketing where you develop clear content to draw the clients that you want so that they pre-qualify themselves. And make sure that you think about identifying what does your ideal client look like? Who do you want to work with? And then provide your marketing and your sales approach in that direction.
Great. I think that's very crisp and concise. Thanks so much. Okay, now the next question is open to, the next question is for Ravi. An effective marketing precedes the successful sale. Okay, which is again succeeded by marketing and getting feedback from customer and reinventing product and marketing strategy. What is your take on it, please?
I think it's an absolutely right one, because marketing and sales are two arms. They are both extremely important to make the world go around. Marketing should listen to sales and sales should use the marketing very effectively. Many cases, unfortunately, both operate in their respective domains, and marketing believes that I think and you do, which is not always the case. I think, and if this both are thinkers and both are doers, they do different kind of thinking and different kinds of action. But otherwise, they must work in brilliant tandem.
Oh, wow. Very good, very good. Okay, now this question is for anybody who would like to take it. How important is it to have self-efficacy along with EI for sales team?
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
I think self-efficacy is, the belief in yourself that you have the right things to be able to do that. So if you see that as self-efficacy, there are two things which I think are very important. One is capability, which is vital for every individual to perform. But sometimes I believe a little more than capability, just a little more, is feeling of capability. I think I can because I can. I think the feeling of capability is sometimes can produce outstanding result. The moment we use the word feeling of capability, I think it beautifully blends with emotions.
Fantastic. Okay, a question for Mamta. How do we build likability during the sales process, and how important do you believe it is?
Okay, Milind, I'm going to take it quick because I know your lack of time right now. It's just a one sentence that I believe is, for a salesperson, your first sale is not your product. Your first sale is yourself. You need to sell yourself to the buyer. And that, how do you do that? You create likability. You're not there as you actually are a product yourself, you're talking about you have to create that likability, and that is how. It's not about physical how you look. It's not at all. Likability has got nothing to do with how you look. It's about your confidence. It's about your presentability to a buyer, and that comes from your passion towards what you're doing, your enthusiasm towards a call, your enthusiasm to meet new people, to click a conversation, to connect with people, and your whole emotion that I am there here for you as a buyer to build your business, to see you growing. And that's something that will keep me going through. And that's how you create likability. And I believe that's the most important thing in a salesperson, because if you build likability, you can be a successful salesperson.
Wow.
So,
Can I just add
Absolutely
something?
true. Absolutely true. And I possibly have time only for one more question, which goes to Steve, which is, what kind of EI certification do you recommend for sales and marketing professionals?
Well, of course, I recommend the EQ Fit sales profile certification. How can I not, right? Since I created it. You know what's important? I look for a year for an emotional intelligence company to do my assessments. I'm certified in 200 different assessments. I chose 6 Seconds because they didn't just leave me at report data. They didn't leave me at just an assessment report. They built a bridge to the future, a pathway to help people move forward, because I didn't want to have to create that all myself. So I have to be honest, I have a bias, Ravi, towards 6 Seconds.
Positive bias.
Positive bias.
Any emotional intelligence in sales is going to act as a multiplier of success.
Fantastic.
Milind?
I think we are on the time, and then
I'm through.
Yes. Thank you. I think Steve was mentioning about the company where the EQ, by applying EQ, how could they grow? This is what is a case study which he wants to show up. So you can see the gray bar and the blue bar over there. The year 1 without EI focused services, year 2 with EI focused services. You could see how could the application of EI to bring revenues up. So EI is application in sales. This is what the greatest takeaway from this panel. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is what, again, Steve has been telling, that he works with EQ Fit Sales and the sales profiles. He workshops, tools, and he has created his own. He has brought out a very interesting tool. I think we'll get in touch with him to create this tool for us also. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then, yes, thank you, panelists. Thank you very much to all of you. Can I have the next slide? Next slide, please. Yeah. Thank you, Steve Goodner, for joining us. And I know it is pretty late in the night, but you have stayed back for us and you have honored our request. Thank you so much. A lot of gratitude to you for sharing your insights as a speaker. Thank you, Mamta. Thank you for sharing your insights as a speaker during our Emotional Intelligence Summit. Thank you very much for being there. Thank you, Ravi. I know Ravi from the last 2 days and a couple of days he was not keeping well, but he put himself there and he joined for our summit. Thank you very much. It's a great honor for us, Ravi. Ravi, you being my mentor, I've always looked up to you. Thank you so much for being over here. We also planted a tree on your behalf to save our environment for our COVID warriors. So, Mamta, your tree has been planted in Karnataka. Thank you for that. And this has been sponsored by our partner, GAPS Digital Solutions. Thank you. Ravi Sundaram, again, yes, thank you. Thank you. This one plant has been planted on yours in Karnataka. Milind, we planted a plant in Uttarakhand in the Himalayas. Thank you so much. Thank you. Can we have the Steve's? Steve's, I think we planted it also in Uttarakhand. Thank you all. Thank you very much. The next session will begin at 11 o'clock. Thank you, all of us. Thank you, all of you. And please continue to be there in the sessions. We'll have wonderful sessions. The next panel discussion is coming up with leading with empathy and overcoming adversity. We have great speakers joining us. Robin Hills, who's joining us from UK, Mr. K.I. Narayanan, Mr. Dr. Adil Malia, Rajiv Naithani will be there with us in the next couple of minutes. So stay tuned, be there with us, do not go away, have a sip of water, take some bio breaks, but just don't leave. Continue to be there over here and you will enjoy our EI complete festival which we have brought it in front of you. Today being the World Mental Health Day, we are wishing you all a great World Mental Health. Please keep your mental health, emotional health at check periodically. It's very, very important. And we have eminent speakers who have spoken about different techniques over here, and we enjoyed each one of you with us. Thank you so much. Can we have the other slides, please? I would like to have our supporting partners for this summit: HQ, PCS Orbit, TPI, Utkrisht Kaushalya, and GAPS. We have a great support from you all. Our gratitude partner, thank you so much, GAPS, for being our gratitude partner with us. Thank you so much.
Can I say a word?
Yes, please.
My personal thanks to, oh God, everything is gone. My personal thanks to Mr. Steve. Excellent presentation from his side. Great insight has been given there.
Can we have your name, please?
My name is Dr. B. Raghuram. I'm also an emotional intelligence part of it. For this, I'm also doing for that. And great insight has been given there. And Mr. Ravi, it shows a man with a wealth of experience, with a wealth of the one way, what he said, how he counteract with this, when he went for the sales, thrown the paper, flew away, and then he said by mistake, he flipped the paper like this. He said the way which he said is absolutely excellent. Mamta is a very practical woman, where he explained about her real life experience. She explained things are there. This is the way the panel has been conducted nicely by Mr. Milan. And I know him, Mr. Milan, nicely. And all the three members they share the rich experience, I can say, not their knowledge. They share the rich experience. That is what required for all the members of those who are the participant here. This is the need of the hour. And one of the, what I would like to, one of the 5 key ingredients is, here is emotional intelligence is the top 5 in the LinkedIn. When the LinkedIn, it was 10th name is there, the characteristics. LinkedIn, one of the top 5 is the emotional intelligence. This is very, very important. People lose emotional intelligence. They lose many things in their personal life and official life. When you are cool, I used to say cool, calm, and composed. These 3 words are very important. Cool in your mind, calm in your approach, and composed in your thoughts. When you are cool and calm, composition will come automatically, because we are unable to proceed further in the personal life and official life, misunderstanding, miscalculation, lot of misses there. We also lead the misses, also we lead misses at times because of the miss is not there. So thank you very much for the panel. Excellent discussion. I look forward, other members also the same way they can take forward. Thank you, Mr. Milan, for the excellent session you have conducted for that. Good day.
Thank you, Dr. Raghuram. Thank you so much for your wonderful thoughts and feedback.
Always we appreciate very difficult, praise openly and criticize privately by competent people. That's what I mean.
Thank you.
When good things are happen, praise openly and lavishly. It's a nice thing. Thank you very much for the opportunity given.